Is an idea that has been brought forth since times of ancient Greek. The word hedonism itself derived from the Greek word of pleasure. So, the basic idea behind hedonism is to find the fulfillment of pleasure and also minimizing pain. This has often happened throughout the years. So you look at the number of drug addicts, alcohol addicts, or just escapist ideas that happen in life. So things like you overspending to make yourself happy is a subsection of hedonism and a symptom of hedonistic values that currently exist in society. To fully understand hedonism, especially in modern society, one needs to look at a few things. Number one, how people find happiness currently. Number two, why people go through alternative methods to find happiness. So first, how do people find happiness? I think it's quite clear to see that people will go through any means to feel good about themselves. So this includes substance abuse, so things like drinking alcohol, taking drugs, participating in gambling activities for the thrill of it, openly having sexual relationships with multiple people. And this shows that society right now doesn't value the meaning of spiritual calmness by finding religion or by finding calmness through other means, because hedonism is the antithesis of what religion should be, right? Especially Islam. In Islam, we are learned to be moderate. We are taught to control ourselves and control our desires, or in the Malay definition, nafsu, to stop ourselves from doing things that have been determined to be wrong. Because in Islam, Islam doesn't let you drink alcohol, engage in gambling, takes drugs, because it has been proven psychologically to not be healthy for you. So to fully understand the basic idea of hedonism is to fully understand what it means for humans to find pleasure or humans to seek happiness through various dangerous means that needs to be stopped. There are a few types of hedonism, and the different types of hedonism is just basically an idea of how severe it is. Today, we are going to talk about, number one, what hedonism is. Number two, how harmful it can be throughout the multiple layers of society, and lastly, about how Islam looks at hedonism and how we can use religion as a way to protect ourselves from potentially dangerous ideology. We have done a lot of research to understand how hedonism exists and the proper ways that it has been detrimental to society. We as a group think that this research is important, so we know how to tackle it, but also so we know how to make it better. Because notice people that participate in hedonistic lifestyles are not inherently bad people. They are victims of a world that they don't find pleasure in. We think that by pushing ideas of Islam, by pushing the ideas of moderation, by pushing the ideas of calmness in Allah, we can manage to help people heal. Because we have interviewed people from other religions, interviewed former drug addicts and normal people, and even religious preachers, to understand what hedonism means in each specific religion and each specific person, and what can we do to make it better.
We're back now with an NBC News investigation with our partners at Reuters into an especially disturbing side of America's growing heroin epidemic. The CDC says the number of babies born in withdrawal, a dependency inherited from a mother battling addiction, has risen fivefold over the last dozen years. In 2013 alone.
Now, the top left of your screen tells the story of a group of young people in Abbotsford running for their lives as a Mustang driven by a drunk driver plows into them.
Alcohol sales are up more than 60%. Opioid overdoses have skyrocketed. And since the casino doors opened after quarantine, a record number of gamblers are rolling the dice on their future. And many are now picking up the phone to say, I need help.
Dangers of hedonism on human civilization. According to Cambridge Dictionary, civilization is defined as human society with its well-developed social organization or the culture and way of life of a society or country or at a particular period of time. There are multiple views nowadays that agree, though living in the state of happiness is an ideal thing, it does not actually yield delight to constantly pursue pleasure or happiness. This is due to the realistic experiences encountered and interviewed in the pursuit of seeking pleasure. Thus, to those that are living aim to solely pursue pleasure, they will be left frustrated over their unattained desire. It is also agreeable by many that hedonism is one of the reasons for the ruination of many previous great empires. The constant indulgence in material elements such as entertainment, money, and intoxicants lead to the downfall of civilization and power. For example, one of the emperors of Tang Dynasty, Emperor Xuanzong, that reigned between the year 712 to the year 756, was leading his country to destruction due to his hedonism. He frequently indulged himself with alcohol and seek pleasure from women. His obsession with a particular woman named Yang Guifei that started when he was 60 years old and she was 24 years old leads to many conflicts within his own country. His adoration towards her blinded his judgment on maintaining an honest and fair ruling. Though at first Yang Guifei was actually meant to be Xuanzong's son's concubine, he disregarded that matter and claimed her as his instead. And along the years they were together, he made a lot of decisions that were not thought thoroughly, such as appointing Yang Guifei's family member into his court. His unfairness led to a great rebellion secretly contemplated behind his back, which resulted on Emperor Xuanzong himself forced to flee from his capital. Another example could be learned is regarding the downfall of Ottoman Empire. Though the Great Ottoman Empire was not directly fall due to hedonism, but hedonistic views and values are one of the influencing factors. The decadence of moral values is caused by the Western influences introduced through activities such as entertainment, art, and various negative Western cultures, lulled the mind of its people from their primary goal on expanding the empire more. Pursuit of pleasure make the people covered to stay in their comfortable position and bath in existing abundance.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Aida Ilin binti Muhammad Adam Neo. There are also different types and branches of hedonism, such as folk hedonism, which means to seek out pleasure without any regard for human well-being, whether it's themselves or other people. For example, using drugs to get a euphoric sensation, but at the same time ruining their own health and body. Another example is to drive recklessly on the road, endangering their own and other people's safety. There are also value hedonism. Value hedonism reduces everything of value to pleasure. An example of value hedonism is that a value hedonist would say that the instrumental value of money by describing the things that we can buy with money so that it can bring us pleasure and also avoid pain. Next, prudential hedonism. Prudential hedonism holds that all and only pleasure that naturally makes people's lives go better for them, and pain makes life go worse. For example, friendship is not valuable in of itself. However, it is valuable to the extent it brings us pleasure. Other than that, there's motivational hedonism. Motivational hedonism is the most significant form of psychological hedonism. Motivational hedonism claims that only pain or pleasure motivates us. Motivational hedonism includes both unconscious and conscious desire for pleasure, however, it emphasizes on the latter. For example, our desire to gain pleasure from food motivates us to cook. Next, normative hedonism. Normative hedonism claims that all and only pleasure has worth or value and only pain has disvalue. For example, the idea that pleasure should be a person's primary motivation. Next, there are hedonistic egoism. Hedonistic egoism is a theory that we must, morally speaking, do whatever that makes us the happiest. That is whatever provides us with the most net pleasure after pain is subtracted. For example, a hedonistic egoist who is not saddened by theft would be morally required to steal from the needy. Lastly, there's hedonistic utilitarianism. Hedonistic utilitarianism is a theory that the right action is the one that produces the greatest net happiness for all concerned. For example, if you were to choose an ice cream for yourself, you should choose the flavor that will give you the most pleasure. A less wholesome example of a hedonistic utilitarianism is that a hedonistic utilitarian are morally obligated to publicly execute an innocent friend if doing so was the only way to promote the greatest happiness overall.
From the Islamic view of hedonism is that Islam does not get with the concept of hedonism, which is hedonism is the use of the pursuit of pleasure and temporary pleasure. In Islam does not teach such a thing. That passage in the translation of Q.S. Hood, verse 116, which reads, "And the unjust only squander the pleasure they have, and they are sinners." The culture of hedonism seems to have become an ideology for young people that there are no more obstacles to do. Whereas a Middle Eastern scholar, Ali Sharati, once said that the biggest match for Muslim teenagers today is the culture of hedonism, because pleasure is the most important thing in life. He argues that this anti-Islamic culture is like and used as a way of life of law Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now we also know Arak, which means a drink that can derail the mind, is a type of drink for which there is a prohibition from drinking it from the Quran and Hadith, while gambling also is a game that contains the element of al-maisir, betting, and its law is haram. Among the gambling games are lottery, tail, stabbing, betting, playing katam, and various other games given in various ways that are created to attract people to gamble. Thus, we also know alcohol, drugs, gambling, even though things that are entertaining and then neglected, can be related to hedonism, which is the pleasure of the world.
As a conclusion, hedonism can be seen as a destructive force that threatens to destroy the foundations of society and to destroy the well-being of people. Hedonistic values in itself isn't wrong, but in the way that it currently exists, a way that brings you further away from religion, further away from fundamental values that makes you a good person, you can see that it is currently dangerous. Historically, as has been said before, it has shown to cause the destruction of societies. We have looked at the multiple different versions of hedonism. We have looked at how Islam itself looked at hedonism, and we as a group can conclude that it is dangerous, and we as a society need to learn to control ourselves better via communal work, but also via government intervention or government policies to push for better family values, to let people have more time to themselves, to spend time with their family, to have more rehabilitation programs, to bring more religious programs to people on the ground to make themselves feel like they don't have to go through harmful means to be happy. I think we can conclude that religion can be used as a force for good to prevent hedonistic values from nurturing, but religion could also be used to help people recover and heal from after participating those hedonistic values. We looked at the drug addict, the previous drug addict that has managed to claim religion and to use it for his better good and to become a better person. We from Group 3 like to thank Ustazah and wish Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.